It's absolutely unbelievable. Now, I want to get into when you did get shot down in Iraq. This is the part of the interview I'm most excited to get into, because you don't really get to meet people who've been shot down in combat. It's a very rare thing. So, what year was it, and can you walk us through everything that happened?
You bet. Yes, sir. So it was 19 March 2004, exactly a year after we started the war is when I got shot down. It was a year later. So I'll set the stage. So if you can look in your mind, or if you can pull up a map, so there's Ramadi, and then there's Fallujah, and then to the south is a little place called Amaria. So that's a triangle. And in that triangle was probably some of the worst fighting since World War II. I mean, it was just full of Al-Qaeda and terrorists and bad guys, and we call it the Wild Wild West. It was the Wild Wild West, man. And we'd been going in there, Fallujah, Ramadi, and hitting targets every night for months now. So we get intel, hey, there's a high-ranking, official here. Let's go hit that target. And then we get more intel. There's another guy that we're looking for, so we go hit another. We'd hit, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 targets a night, depending on the time of year. Because in the wintertime, you have more, longer period of darkness. So that would give us more time to work. Whereas in the summer, darkness is shorter, and we might hit 3 or 4 targets, that night. In the wintertime, we could hit several targets. And we'd been up for several days chasing bad guys at B Squadron Delta. We were working with on that rotation, and of course the Rangers. So we'd hit a target that night or early morning of the 19th. It was just about to get daylight, and so we got some intel off of that target that another guy we were looking for was going to be at a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning in Fallujah. And we were like, 10 o'clock in the morning, daytime, bad. And the sergeant major is like, hey, I want you guys, we had a little area to the east of Fallujah where we could land our helicopters. We had some fuel bladders there, so if we need fuel, we could get it. And guys would bring ammo in for us. So he said, hey, you guys, you stay here, crank up, get on the radios. We're going to drive in, at 10 in the morning and capture this guy. So they did. They drove to the house, hit the house, and they came back. And after talking to this fella, there was a higher ranking dude in Amaria that we wanted. So Sergeant Major, we talked about it for a bit, and Troop Commander, and they said, hey, we're going to drive down there and kill that guy, and we'll head back to Baghdad. And I was like, okay, roger that. So we went back to Baghdad. At that time, we were still on the west side of Baghdad International Airport, living in a big hangar. That's where all the special ops folks were. So we fly back. They drive, they take off, start to drive down to Amaria to hit that target. And it was probably about 12, 15. Yeah, somewhere around there. They came running out and said, hey, the recce troop, those were the Delta guys. The recce troop had been ambushed. Can you guys go help them? We're like, absolutely, we're going. So we jumped in the aircraft, hauled ass out there, got on station, and they had 2 Panders, which are big armored 6-wheeled vehicles, and then they had 3 gun trucks, up-armored gun trucks at the time, Humvees with 50 cals, and one truck had dual 240Gs on it. But a Ranger mans those up guns on the Delta trucks just to help those guys. So we get on station and start doing a recon around, clear the area and make sure nobody's trying to flank on those guys or maneuver on them or whatever the case. And we cleared the area and came back. And I mean, it was just, I mean, from the time I cranked the helicopter, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I said, okay, we're in a little black helicopter. It's daytime, and we're going to one of the most dangerous places on the planet. So, oh gosh, here we go again. And my co-pilot, whoever's not flying in an AH, well, you've got your M4 up and ready. So if a target pops up, you can suppress it or engage it and shoot it, whatever the case. But it's very effective, and we're very good shots out of that helicopter. We train to it and practice it. So I told him, I said, hey man, I said, I don't, if you see anything, I want you to shoot it. I don't care. And just call out. So we get on station. There's bad guys running around everywhere, and we made a couple engagements. And then the troop commander called. He says, hey, we're going to exfil here in a couple minutes. That means we're going to leave and go back to Baghdad. They completed their mission. And we were all like, okay, man, let's get out of here, dude. It is killing us. So we made a couple more passes, and it was about 1:15 in the afternoon. And I always do like a low pass, over the ground force just to say, hey, hey, you guys, we're good. Let's go home. And I'd done that, and I was pulling out. I was in a climbing right-hand turn going towards the southwest, and just all of a sudden this giant explosion. I mean, that's the best I can explain it. And the aircraft shuddered, and all the warnings. So in aircraft, like if you have an engine failure, you'll get a caution warning light, and then you'll get a tone, in your headset. And this, something went right by my head. And at that moment in time, the best way I can explain it is that everything slowed down, and it was like an old movie reel, went frame by frame by frame by frame. And the human body is just, it's incredible, and adrenaline and all these things that happen to us under stress or duress. And my training kicked in. We train. I'm an instructor pilot, so I've done a lot of auto rotations. So when you lose an engine in a helicopter, we have a maneuver called an auto rotation, and it's just a powered off landing. But you have to do some things in the cockpit to make sure that's successful. You lower the collective, and then, you have to get the aircraft in trim, and then find a spot where you're going to land. So I was watching, I can remember scanning my instruments, because pilots use elevation to help judge your height off the ground. So a building, a tree, a telephone pole, something that, because at 75 feet in this helicopter, you have to start a decel to bleed off your airspeed. So I had a radar altimeter, so I was watching it, because there was nothing to look at outside to help me judge my height above the ground. So I saw 75 feet. The rotor got a little bit high, so I added a little bit of collective, and I was looking. You look right through your pedals in the chin bubble as to where you're going to land. And that particular helicopter, the old guys always said, yeah, that thing falls like a greased crowbar. So be aware, it comes out of the sky pretty fast with no engine. So I remember, so I saw 75 feet. I started my decel, and then thinking, I'm like, I don't know the condition of the ground, so I want to minimize my ground run. So after you land, you always travel a certain distance, depending on the terrain. So I said, okay, and I was heavy, and I had a tailwind. I was in the worst condition to conduct an auto rotation I could be in. So at about 20 feet, I said, to myself, I'm gonna level the aircraft, and then I'm gonna pull everything I've got left. So what you do, the collective controls the pitch of the blades. So I'm gonna just pull all I got left, and then that'll, those blades will bite, and then cushion our landing, and hopefully we won't roll too far when we touch down. And I did that. We touched down, and I was like, okay, we're okay, we're on the ground, and the terrain out there, it's just real fine dirt. It's like talcum powder, dust, and that filled the cockpit. So I was just holding everything, I was lowering the collective to get the weight down on the skids, and praying that, that would help reduce our ground run. Again, I didn't know if it was, rocky, I didn't know what the condition was of the ground. So I'm doing the best I can. And we started to slide. And then I felt the aircraft kind of coming up like this. And I was like, oh, crap, man. And then I remember hearing the rotor blades hit the ground. And now I'm like, I'm leaning back in the aircraft. It's just a human instinct, I think. It's like, if you got kids and you're driving in your car and you slam your brakes, well, what do? You throw your arm out, And my co-pilot said I did that when we were getting ready to roll on over. He said I threw my arm out, to protect him. And again, it's just what we do as humans. And I remember hearing the rotor blades beating the ground, and I'm like, oh, Lord, man, I know we're going to be okay. And that was the last thing I remembered, is hearing those rotor blades. And then I came to, I know both of us were knocked out. Of course, we never said anything, because an aviator, if you lose consciousness, you're automatically grounded for 2 years. And we didn't want to be grounded for 2 years. There was a war going on, and, people depended on us. But anyway, later on I was like, no, Doc, I'm good. No, we never lost consciousness. We're good to go. But both of us got beat up pretty bad. So I came to, and the first thing you do after a traumatic event is, I check my body. Can I move my feet? Yeah. My leg's still there. Yeah. I looked down, and again, there was just dust, you couldn't see. I couldn't see in front of my face, and I could hear gunfire. I could hear automatic weapons. So I knew that the Delta guys were, they were engaged in a gunfight. I could hear the other AH shooting, and I said, okay, I need to continue my assessment. So I look at my hands, and I just checked my body to make sure everything was still, that I was alive. I was like, all right, man, we got this. And then I heard this popping, and I'm like, okay, that's not gunfire. And in these few seconds, I'm trying to gain situational awareness, and we were upside down. So that's how the aircraft rolled 3 times, tore the tail boom off, and that particular helicopter was designed to do that. Mr. Hughes, that designed that helicopter in 1955, I think, and is still flying today, but he designed it that way for that reason. So if it ever rolled, that it would keep the pilot safe in the helicopter. And it did. It worked as advertised. And for some odd reason, I thought about popcorn, because it was pop, 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 pop. Well, it was the ammo cooking off right behind my head. It was on fire. And then I was like, oh, crap, man, that's the ammo. And I had rockets on board. So I thought about those. What would they do when they catch on fire? Would they explode? Would they go off? I had no idea. So at that particular moment, my priority was myself and my co-pilot to get us out of that helicopter and to get in a safe area.
Now,
And
real quick, you said that you said your co-pilot had an M4. Were you also armed? Did you have a rifle yourself?
yeah, we both carry our weapons up in the cockpit with us. We have a little rack, so whoever's flying, your M4 will fit right there. I mean, it's right there at your hand in the right seat, and then the left seater, it's right there, and they've always got their rifle up and ready.
So when you are on the ground now, are you being shot at? Like, are you returning fire, or is no one
No,
paying attention to where you are?
no, the ground force, the Delta guys were engaged in a gunfight to the east of us. We're about 300 meters from that little area and two of the guys saw the missile shot. So the missile, or the weapon system that shot me down, was a highly technologically advanced system. It was Russian. It was an SA-16 surface to air missile, but it's a shoulder fired system that seeks heat. So they use it to shoot down jets and helicopters and things like that. It's designed specifically for aircraft. So it seeks that heat from the engine, and then when it gets close, it's got a proximity fuse. So that fuse will measure that distance to that heat source, and then it will explode. So it sends all these little fragments into that aircraft instead of, like an RPG or a rocket where it's just one projectile and it might hit and it might not. So that's why those systems are more effective against aircraft. It's like a shotgun blast. Boom. So, and it worked as advertised. So it had hit the engine, and the engine went out. But the guys on the ground were engaged. And so once I checked myself, I kind of undo my shoulder harness or my seatbelt, and I grabbed my rifle. I look over at my co-pilot and I said, "Hey, get your rifle and meet me over here," because on a armed gunship, you don't want to get in front of it in case a bullet goes off or a rocket goes off or whatever. So we always meet we use clock positions. So 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and we were both pretty jacked up. So I pointed, I said, "Meet me over here," instead of saying, "Meet me at 3 o'clock," like over here. Well, when he looked at me, he had blood all over his face. And I was like, "Oh no." And this fella, he was a junior. This is his first combat tour. He was brand new to the unit. And I'm like, "Welcome to B Company. Get your ass out now." So now I'm thinking, okay, did he get hit? Why is there blood all over his face? And then I thought the little bird, it has a bad reputation for the shoulder harness not locking in a crash sequence. And I know a couple guys that this has happened to. So they crashed, the shoulder harness didn't lock. So they hit the cyclic with their mouth. It knocked all their teeth out. There's a couple fellas I know that happened to. So that was the first. I was like, "Oh crap, maybe his shoulder harness didn't lock," and he hit his mouth or whatever the case. And I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "Are you okay?" And he was still looking kind of straight ahead. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he kind of did one nod, and I said, "Okay." I said, "Get your ass out. I'm not kidding." So I crawl out, got my rifle, and my first priority now is security of the aircraft. So 360 degrees, little black helicopter just shot down. And I'm not kidding. I was thinking Black Hawk down. Here we go. Daytime, black helicopter, bad things happen. So I attempt to stand up. I do stand up, and I took a step and I fell down. I go, So I stood back up, I took a step, and I fell. I did this 2 or 3 times. And the other AH, they had come back around to check us because the helicopter was fully engulfed in fire now. And he told us, like, "Yeah, he said, I came back to land because we hadn't seen you guys, and, we were trying to service targets for the ground force. And then we saw you crawl out." We're like, "Okay, they're good." And they they watched me. And later they were like, it was kind of funny, man. You look like a clown. You know, you're up, he's down. He's up, he's down. He's up, he's down. What the heck's going on? Well, I thought my leg was broken. So that about that third time I hit the ground, I just pulled my pant legs up and, you know, checked both of my legs and checked my body again. And I'm like, okay. Well, what had happened is in that I compressed that L spine and I got a stinger and it just put my leg to sleep for a very short time. And so that's what was going on there. And then I got up and I made it all the way around the aircraft just to make sure nobody was, you know, any enemy were coming towards us. And I looked back and my co-pilot still hadn't gotten out. And I'm like, holy smokes, man, this thing's burning. I mean, an aircraft burns, you know, you got all those metals and fuel and oils and this thing was, and I even thought about, we carry like a little rucksack that goes right behind our heads in the cargo area. We all carry them. And it's got water, grenades, ammo, you know, things that we could use and need. Well, I thought, well, I'm going to get my rucksack out of there. And when I turned around and looked, well, that cargo area was fully engulfed in fire. And I'm like, I'm not putting my arm in there to get that stupid rucksack out of there. So I come back around, co-pilot's still in there, and I get down on my knees and I scream at him. I said, get out of the helicopter now. So I get back up and, you know, again, my priority is protection of my crew and, you know, where we are at that time. And I kind of walked to the right a little bit and then I look back again and no co-pilot. So I ran back over there. I get down on the ground. I crawl in the cockpit. I didn't say anything to him. And I reach up and I grab his latch on his seatbelt. Now he's upside down. And I just pull that latch and he goes, don't, you know, lands on his head and crumples down in a pile. And I just grab him and I pull him. I pull him on top of me and I push and I just push again, and now we're clear of the aircraft. And I'm like, I told you to get out. I said, you're about to burn up. But that last time, his arm, the fire was just like rolling right there at his arm. And I mean, it was just, it was seconds away before it engulfed that cockpit. And so I get him out, and we kind of crawl over to that right side, and there's a bit of a defilade. So, you know, a low spot there in the ground. And I'm like, okay, this will be a good spot to defend if we have to. And so I start checking him and I keep checking around, making sure nobody's coming up. And I tell him, I say, hey, let me see your teeth, you know, do like that. Okay, he's got his teeth. And I'm like, doggone, I wonder what happened. Because you don't want to tell somebody that, you know, holy cow, man, you look really bad, because it'll send them another level of shock. And we're both in shock and we're both busted up and beat up. So I told him, I said, stick out your tongue. And he had bit through way through his tongue. I was like, oh man. I said, okay. I said, you're going to be okay. I promise. And so we set up. I was looking to the north. I was up on a knee and he was in a prone looking to the east. And I told him, I said, hey, if you see something or hear something, you know, reach over and give me a squeeze or tell me, hey, I got contact 12 o'clock, whatever. Let's put both eyes on it. Both guns were kind of jacked up right now because I didn't want to accidentally shoot a good guy, you know, just come check on us. And then and you know, people ask me, well, how much time he left? I have no idea. I really don't. And seemed like a lifetime a couple of times, and then I heard a truck. I said, hey, I got a vehicle coming. I said, just let's, you know, get over here and let's put both guns on it. And we were at the low ready. And then I see a ball cap. I see a head kind of, you know, it was running, bouncing. I see this ball cap and I see the face and the beard. And then I like, oh, I know him. that's Chaz. That's my buddy. So one of the Delta guys they thought we were dead because all they saw was, the black smoke and the burning helicopter. And he runs up to us, hugs us, and he's like, man, we thought you guys were dead. I said, no, we ain't dead, brother. And later he said, I asked him if he had a fire extinguisher so I could go put out the fire. He goes, no, Greg, it's past, saving.
Had they taken out the guy who'd fired the missile at you?
They didn't know. Like I said earlier, two guys saw the missile shot. It came from a 2-story building in this little ville. And so they immediately started to suppress. And actually, one of the Rangers in one of the gun trucks, we all carry these little plastic, Kodak crank cameras. We weren't supposed to have cameras, but we carried them anyway. Well, he saw the missile hit me, and he threw his camera up and snapped a picture of it. And I go, bro, why weren't you suppressing the target instead of taking, a Kodak moment? You're taking pictures. And we laughed about it. And his name's Jeremy Smith. And he goes, no, man. I was like, holy cow. He said, I took a picture. And then I started to suppress, and I said, okay. But he had actually captured me on fire in the air. You could see the fire coming from the helicopter. And it was, it's pretty, I have that picture. And it's pretty cool. But anyway, so Chaz gets there to us, and he asked me, he says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go find that motherfucker and kill him. Yeah. He's like, get in the truck, Gravy. Let's go, brother. So we get in the truck, and there's a team medic, and, special operations medics, man, they're the best in the world. I mean, they're professionals, and every one of them trusts those guys with our lives, and they have saved so many men on the battlefield over the years. We call them Doc, but they're the best. They are. So we come pulling up there, and a couple of guys were surprised to see us. They're like, God, man, we figured you guys were crispy critters by now, and here you are, got your M4s, and, you're ready to go. And troop commander came over, sergeant major came over, and Chaz says, hey, Greg wants to attack that building. And they're like, roger that, let's go. So Doc was working on us. He was sticking needles in us and tubes and pills and, checking us. And I noticed he kept looking at the troop commander and kept looking at the troop commanders like, we need to get these guys out of here, man. They're pretty fucked up. And looking forward, I've had 43 surgeries, and I have 47 pieces of titanium in me from that crash. So, and I just, my buddies hack on me all the time. They're like, hey, you remember when you crashed? And I'm like, I didn't crash. I got shot down. There's a difference. There's a difference. They're like, no, man, you crashed.
So do you assault the building then?
Yes. So we get loaded up. Well, first of all, the troop commander says, hey, Greg, he says, you need to hear this. There's a bunch of radio chatter now, and we have standard operating procedures. When an aircraft goes down, everything stops, and the focus is to get that crew. That's it. And so they had contacted the theater-dedicated combat search and rescue, special operations Air Force, okay? That's their whole mission in their life. And they refused to come get us. They said it was too risky. I said, and the troop commander was like, holy cow, man. He says, hey, we got you guys. We got Doc. We'll get you out of here. It's all good. So I got on the radio. I called back to our TOC, our Tactical Operations Center. So simultaneously, they said that every helicopter, cooks, dishwashers, crew chiefs, everybody was on a helicopter with a gun coming to get us. They loaded on everything. Then I said, do not come in here. Do not. I personally thought it was a trap. And again, I go into detail in the book about it. So I said, hey, you guys go go hold east of Fallujah. And if we need you, we'll get out of here, this area, and then, we'll get fixed wing overhead, F-16s or some kind of fire support, because that's what we'll do. We want to secure that area and make sure it's safe before we bring in other aircraft. And I know those Air Force crews, I know those guys would have come, man. It came from, channels way higher than them to not come and get us. But it really made me angry. And I told them, I said, I would have come got you, man. I would have, because that's what we do.
Right.
Anyway, so we load up on these trucks and we get in line. It was probably good, I don't know, 100, 150 meters to the building where the shot came from. And I told them, I says, I want to go to that building. I want to clear that building. I want to go to the roof and see if there's any evidence up there, a box, any dunnage or something. And both guys that saw the shot said it was an SA-16. So every missile system, they leave a smoke signature and then a corkscrew. And we're trained to, if I see a shot, I can look at that smoke signal, and I can tell you what system it is. It's an SA-7. It's an SA.
Right.
Everyone's different. Everyone has a different signature, is what I'm trying to say. And they both said it was a 16, man. There's no doubt about it. Later, they did confirm that it was an SA-16. And at the time, in that Devil's Triangle, okay, there have been 8 helicopters shot down in less than 2 months. We were number 8. We were also the last. We're also the only crew to survive out of those 8 shoot downs. And
were they all Army shoot downs for the most part?
No, there was I think a Navy CH-46. There was a couple Marine, I think a Marine Cobra, a Marine Huey, a couple of Chinooks, and some Army 58s, the 58Ds. Yes, sir. The best I recall. But the guy, I think it was one dude running around in there in that triangle shooting down helicopters. And he had 8.
And you think he's now in this house?
Yes.
Okay. So you're at the house, you're getting ready to roll in. What happens from that point?
Yeah, so we get in the trucks. We start laying in suppressive fires. We start taking fire from that small-ville or that small town. And I'm in the back right seat with the troop commander, and I'm looking, I kind of look to the left, I kind of look to the right, and I mean, we're hauling ass across this desert. And you're probably too young to remember this old show called Rat Patrol.
Never seen it.
Well, that was in my time period. But it was about these British commandos running around North Africa in World War II hunting Germans. And they'd be in these Jeeps. But that's what I thought about when I looked to the right, looked to the left, because we were all on line, hauling ass across this desert, and the guys were shooting. And so we get about 50 meters from the building, and our truck goes and we get stuck in some mud. And now we're under fire, and we're like, oh crap, man, now, so we get out, we get to our corners, and one of the Panders, it's a big armored vehicle. So he peels off to come pull us out of the mud. And I'm watching on my corner, and on all these houses in the Mideast, they have a roof access. They're flat roofs and then a roof access. Well, this dude comes kind of running out on the roof, and he's in a black, we call them man dresses, but he's in a black man dress, which that tells me he's a bad guy, but he's on a cell phone. And I go, hey, Sergeant Major, I said, I got a target. He's on a phone. He said, well, shoot that son of a bitch. And I said, okay. Well, the dude runs back in, to the little access area. Well, and then he comes back out, and he picks his phone up. Well, I shoot him. I put 2 in his chest and drop him. And then Jeremy said, action 10 o'clock. So he's moving his guns to the left. And he starts to engage a building, and then two guys, they come out of a house. One's carrying an AK, the other got an RPG. So I engage them. I drop both of them. And it's just, I mean, it's a gunfight going on. And this pander's maneuvering to get behind us. And the guy jumps out with like a snatch strap, hooks it to us, pulls us out of the mud. And then we get back in, all this under fire. And it was just crazy, man. I was like, this is not happening right now. You know, we just survived a shoot down and da-da-da-da-da, but I wanted to get to that building. I wanted to clear it and see, and I wanted to shoot that son of a bitch that shot me down. And so they get to the building, we clear it. It was 2-story. So the boys, they clear it, and there's nothing on the roof. This dude was clean, man. He was clean. And he was highly trained because he waited for me for the perfect shot. You know, there's some things that have to happen before you do a shot with a system like that. Like I wasn't into the sun, or the guy was a professional. And so we come out of that building, and the sergeant major grabs me. He goes, "Hey, let's go have a chat with some of these dudes," you know. So we're grabbing people off the street. You know, "Hey, where'd he go? Did you see him? Who was it?" You know, and they didn't know. And he spoke fluent, you know, language for that part of the world. So we never did find anything. And we kind of went through the Ville looking around, and we're like, okay, we need to get back to the aircraft, because we had sensitive items. So sensitive items are weapons, or, you know, radios, things that we don't want the enemy to get a hold of or to pick up. But they had already called a unit from the 82nd, and they were there at the aircraft and had secured it. And so we get to the site, and guys, they took pictures. I just wanted to capture that for the investigation, and, you know, for later data. But yeah, there was nothing left of that helicopter. It was all burned up. And so we're like, okay, so now what's the plan? And Sergeant Major said, "Hey, let's go to Ramadi. You know, that's where our mission support site was." And we were like, "Hey, let's roll out. Let's go." So long story short, it was a 6-hour gunfight. And then we roll out. We have to go through Fallujah again. So we fight our way through Fallujah, back to the highway. We get to Ramadi, fight our way through Ramadi, because the MSS was in the northeast corner on the river. And by now it's 10 o'clock at night. And yeah, we drive through the gate, and it was just that sense of security. I think that, okay, we're safe now. We're safe. We're in the compound. 2 of their doctors were standing there waiting on us. And we pulled up, and we're just getting ready to park. And I got sick to my stomach. I had a concussion. I had traumatic brain injury. I threw the door open, and I just rolled out, and I started throwing up. And the docs grabbed me, and of course they grabbed the other guy. He was sick too. And then about, I don't know, probably 5 minutes later, one of our 160th Blackhawks land right there at the compound to pick us up. And they docs and medics are there, and they load us up, and then they take us to the hospital there in Baghdad. So,
well, Greg, I got to be honest with you, man. That is one of the absolute craziest stories, both Haditha Dam and that. And I want to say thank you. We're running up on time here. I want to say thank you for your awesome stories. And I would really like to have you back maybe in 6 to 9 months, and we can kind of get into some more stories. I do apologize. We're on a tight hour and a half time window today. But, Greg, this has been absolutely awesome. This is one coolest. And so you're welcome back anytime, and I really appreciate this.
Thank you.